From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang, and here are the news. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. stressed the life-changing effect of the expanded tertiary education equivalency and accreditation program, or ITIAP Act, which allows millions of hardworking Filipinos to finally earn a college degree without having to enter a traditional classroom. President Marcos signed the ITIAP laws implementing rules and regulations, or IRR, at the Malacañang Palace, emphasizing the law's recognition of knowledge and skills gained through work experiences, self-learning, and informal education. The ITIAP Act, signed into law by President Marcos in March 2025, establishes a formal framework for individuals to achieve degrees by translating work competencies into academic credit. The momentous legislation is viewed as a lifeline for talented workers, caregivers, mechanics, technologists, and entrepreneurs who have demonstrated their ability but lack academic credentials.
Marami tayong mga kababayan na hindi nakapagtapos ng kolehiyo dahil kinailangan nilang magtrabaho para sa pamilya, para magpaaral ng kanilang mga kapatid, para tumayong padre o madre de pamilya. Ngunit hindi nawala ang kanilang talino, ang kanilang diskarte, determinasyon. Kaya naman, sa ilalim ng ITIAP Act, maaari po nilang gamitin ang kanilang mga karanasan upang makamit ang kanilang diploma. Through this act, we now have a clear and structured way to recognize the prior learning of individuals, be it from years of work or because they have taught themselves these skills, and match that with an academic equivalency.
Marcos also mentioned a critical element in the statute that provides enrichment support to help students reach professional and academic criteria. Beyond financial savings, the president underscored that the measure creates doors to higher positions, better income, and more professional opportunities. He said that it encourages educational institutions to become more inclusive by acknowledging that learning is not always linear and intelligence takes many forms. President Marcos urged the Commission on Higher Education and its partner agencies to ensure that the law is implemented smoothly and effectively.
By encouraging higher education institutions to adopt flexible approaches such as online learning, we respond to various backgrounds, life experiences, and learning styles of the ITIAP applicants. This law gives our fellows who were not able to finish college a second chance. It supports caregivers, mechanics, technicians, and entrepreneurs, people who have long proven their skill, but who now get their recognition that they properly deserve. This leads to the development of stronger industries, a more competitive workforce, a more inclusive path to progress. So to the CHED and its partner agencies, let's ensure the implementation of this act goes smoothly. Monitor our deputized HEIs and see to it that this law benefits those it was created for.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang expressed support for the plan to tap beneficiaries of the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE's tulong panghanap buhay sa ating disadvantaged, displaced, or tupad as workers in the government-subsidized Kadiwa stores. In a press conference, Presidential Communications Officer and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro lauded the signing of the Memorandum of Agreement between the DOLE and the Department of Agriculture, or DA, on the hiring of tupad workers for the wider rollout of Kadiwa ng Pangulo, or KNP outlets.
Na po ang hikain ng Memorandum of Agreement na ito. Kanina lamang po ay nakausap natin si Labor Secretary Laguesma at handa na po silang ipa-implement ito para po makapag-generate naman po ng employment sa mga tupad workers. At mangyayari lamang po nito ay ang mga detalye patungkol dito ay ayusin lamang dahil ang una po, ang minimum na araw po ay 30 days at ang maximum na araw po ay 90 days. Kaya po maganda po ito dahil makakapagbigay ng employment sa mga tupad members and at the same time, minimum wage po ang ibibigay sa kanila.
Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma's statement, Castro said the DOLE is ready to hire tupad workers for Kadiwa stores, adding they could work to a maximum of 90 days. More Kadiwa centers will be rolled out as the government intends to sell 20 pesos per kilogram of rice to around 15 million poor Filipino households under Benteng Bigas Meron or BBM na program. On June 13, at least 16,000 minimum wage earners in about 100 establishments benefited from the nationwide simultaneous launching of BBM na for minimum wage earners. Apart from more companies with BBM na, the DA and DOLE will also allow labor unions and federations to roll out KNP programs. 7 labor organizations have so far been accredited for KNP operations, benefiting 152 members in Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Eastern and Central Visayas, while 6 more are targeted to be included from other regions. The DA also partnered with the Philippine Carabao Center to integrate 48 dairy box outlets for the continuous KNP expansion.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has instructed the Philippine National Police or PNP to coordinate with the Commission on Human Rights or CHR, underscoring the importance of protecting civil liberties and safeguarding the rights of all Filipinos. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said President Marcos met with PNP Chief General Nicolas Torre III on Monday evening in Malacañang. Castro said the president put primacy on ensuring lawful police operations and upholding human rights. President Marcos and Torre also discussed broad police operations and key public safety initiatives. Castro said that while the PNP must act swiftly and decisively in ensuring public safety, it must do so without violating human rights.
Sa ngayon po, napakabago pa po ng ating PNP chief at nakikita po naman natin ang kanyang mabilis na aksyon. Sa katunayan ay nagtanggal nga daw po siya ng 8 police chiefs dahil sa napakabagal at failure to implement ang 5-minute response policy. So ito'y magbibigay at gigising sa mga kapulisan natin na hindi dapat tutulog-tulog kapag pagpoproteksyon ang dapat ibigay sa taong bayan. Marami po na pag-usapan ang PNP chief at ang Pangulo. Ito po ay mga proyekto. Kaakibat nga po dito ay ang 5-minute response time strategy na dapat ipatupad. Nandiyan na rin po ang OPLAN na Balik Eskwela 2025-2026. Nandiyan din po ang anti-illegal drug campaign strategy, pati po ang training and educational program for for Department of Justice, DOJ prosecutors, and law enforcement agents. Nais din po ng Pangulo na makipag-collaborate ang PNP sa Commission on Human Rights para din po maproteksyonan ang human rights, no? Ang karapatan ng mamamayang Pilipino.
Directives now being implemented are expanded police visibility in communities, faster police response through the 911 emergency hotline, and reinforced law enforcement presence in schools. More than 37,000 police personnel were deployed nationwide for the opening of classes, along with the setup of over 5,000 police assistance desks near campuses. Torre also personally inspected select schools to ensure adequate police coverage. The PNP also warned drug dealers and militant groups against targeting students.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has reappointed veteran journalist Jay Ruiz as acting secretary of the Presidential Communications Office or PCO. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin confirmed. Bersamin said Ruiz's appointment paper was released on Monday. Ruiz's ad interim appointment as PCO secretary was deemed bypassed by the Commission on Appointments or CA after it adjourned sine die on June 13. The CA was scheduled to deliberate on Ruiz's appointment on June 3 but deferred it due to lack of time. President Marcos earlier directed Ruiz to continue his work as head of the PCO despite the CA's failure to tackle his appointment. In a statement, Ruiz expressed his gratitude to President Marcos for his continued trust and confidence in him. Ruiz also thanked the media organizations that expressed support for his latest government stint, saying their trust and encouragement affirm their shared commitment to responsible journalism and meaningful public discourse. Ruiz is the fourth PCO chief under the Marcos administration. Trixie Cruz Angeles was the first to serve as press secretary. She was succeeded by Cheloy Garafil, who now heads the Manila Economic and Cultural Office until September 2024. Before Ruiz, President Marcos also named Cesar Chavez as acting PCO secretary.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang announced Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has accepted the courtesy resignations of at least 17 officials from the Presidential Communications Office or PCO. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro confirmed to reporters the major changes in the PCO, including the voluntary departure of Senior Undersecretary Ana Puod for personal reasons. The performance of government undersecretaries is currently being evaluated in view of ongoing efforts to recalibrate the Marcos administration. Castro clarified that until now, there is no directive from President Marcos for any undersecretaries to submit their courtesy resignations despite being under probation.
Sa mga USEC po kasi wala naman pong direktiba na kami ay maghain ng courtesy resignation. Depende na naman po sa Pangulo kung ang mga USEC, ASEC at ibang mga direktor ay hindi tumatalima sa direktiba ng Pangulo. Yun po ay maaaring matanggal. At voluntary po kay Ms. Ana Puod ang kanyang pag-resign at kung ang kanyang dahilan ay, kung ano man ang kanyang dahilan, personal na po sa kanya yun.
Castro noted that the term of around 27 officials in government have also expired. She did not provide additional details about the government officials with expired terms. Pressed if the list of vacant positions in the PCO will be released, Castro said she will ask the agency's reappointed acting secretary, Jay Ruiz. Apart from Jay Ruiz, President Marcos also reappointed Henry Aguda as secretary of the Department of Information and Communications Technology. Aguda and Ruiz's appointments were deemed bypassed by the Commission on Appointments as Congress adjourned sine die on June 13. Castro echoed President Marcos's warning against government officials who are not performing well.
Okay, ang sabi ng Pangulo, may mga ahensya na nagbibigay ng report, pero pag tinignan mo, hindi tama. So kung ito man ay hindi tama at intentionally done, hindi po magiging maganda ang lagay na nasabing opisyal. Hindi na po tayo magbabanggit kung ano man itong departamento o ahensya, pero kapag ka po hindi na-explain na mabuti kung bakit hindi tugma ang kanyang report sa katotohanan, ay maaari po siguro siyang pagbuksan ng pinto.
Officer and Presidential Communications Office, PCO Undersecretary Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang said the Marcos administration will not intervene in the strategy of the camp of former President Rodrigo Duterte to have his interim release approved by the International Criminal Court or ICC. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro issued a reaction when asked about the palace's take on the statement of international law expert Arnedo Valera that Duterte's request to be transferred to a third country while facing trial at the ICC is supported by legal precedent and established international rules. Castro reiterated that the Philippine government will let the Duterte camp do what they want. However, she cautioned them not to drag the name of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. in their pleadings.
hindi po tayo makikialam kung ano man po ang estratehiya ni Atty. Kaufman at ni dating Pangulong Duterte. Tandaan po natin sa isang court battle, ay lagi naman po dalawa ang sides nito. Affirmative, negative, depende kung nasaan kang posisyon. At yun nga lamang po, sinasabi nila ay maaari po itong pagbigyan. At ang iba naman po nagsasabing hindi dapat pagbigyan. Dahil nandun pa rin daw po yung issue na flight risk. At nandiyan pa rin po yung maaaring pananakot na maidudulot ng mga Duterte. At kahit yung mga supporters, umaalma ang ibang mga witnesses at ibang mga pamilya ng biktima, di umano, na nakakatanggap sila ng online harassment. At sabi nga natin, kung ano man ang magiging estratehiya nila Atty. Kaufman, gawin po nila yan at wala pong magiging pakialam ang Pangulo, ang palasyo, ang gobyerno, patungkol po dyan. Ang abiso lamang po natin, sana huwag magsinungaling sa kanilang pleadings, huwag gamitin ang Pangulo sa propaganda nila, at huwag mamulitika using the President's name. Yun lang po.
Duterte is seeking interim release from the ICC, assuring the chamber that he is not a flight risk and a threat to witnesses based on the request made by Kaufman dated June 12. According to the redacted version of the request for his temporary release, Duterte's arrest is not necessary to ensure the integrity of the investigations or to preclude the continued commission of crimes. Duterte's camp also assured the ICC of his principled willingness to cooperate.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang said the government is ready to provide immediate assistance and interventions amid fears that the conflict in the Middle East could affect the prices of oil and fertilizers. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has already ordered the close monitoring of the latest developments in the Middle East amid increasing hostilities between Iran and Israel.
Nakausap po natin si Ma'am Sharon Garin at sinabi nila minomonitor nila closely ang Middle East situation at maaari pong magdulot ng issue kapag po talaga na isa itong Straits of Hormuz. Pero sa kasalukuyan po, ang kumpanya po, ang oil companies po ay required na magkaroon ng 30-day inventory of fuel. At kapag po tumaas ang presyo ng crude oil ng mahigit sa $80 per barrel, ang ayuda for fuel for public transport and fisher folk ay matitrigger po at kakailangan na rin po na maabisuhan ang DA and DOTR patungkol po sa ayudang ito. Monitor pong mabuti kung anong sitwasyon para po makapagbigay ng agaran ding solusyon at kahit paano po ay ayuda kung talaga pong sobrang tataas ang presyo ng krudo.
Castro said the Department of Energy is closely monitoring the situation in the Middle East and has required oil companies to submit a 30-day inventory of fuel. She said the government would release fuel subsidies if the price of crude oil reaches more than $80 per barrel. She said the Department of Agriculture, or DA, and the Department of Transportation would be notified if there is a need to grant aid. She said DOE Officer in Charge Under Secretary Sharon Garin would also hold a dialogue with oil companies if the situation exacerbates.
Sobra daw po talaga ang pagtaas at hindi maiwasan. Makikipag-usap po ang DOE sa mga oil companies para po ma-maintain yung inventory levels po. At hanggat maaari ay ma-spread out ang oil price adjustments. Yan po ay siyempre voluntary po at nasa magandang pakikipag-usap po yan.
He said the DA is also ready to import fertilizers from other countries such as Brunei in case there is disruption in Gulf shipping of the supply from Qatar. Qatar, one of the Philippines' major suppliers, sits only 510 miles from Iran.
Nakausap po natin kanina lamang po si DA Secretary Laurel at sinabi po niya na ready naman po at kung mangyayari man po ito, maaari po tayong kumuha sa ibang parte ng mundo na malapit sa atin, katulad po ng Brunei. At nakikita rin naman po ng DA na hindi naman ito magdudulot ng pangmatagalan na problema, lalo-lalo na po kung di naman daw po isasara ang sea lanes. So, let's just pray for that.
Alice Press Officer and Presidential Communications Office, PCO Undersecretary Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Finally, for Dateline Malacañang, the Philippine government has activated emergency support measures after 14 overseas Filipino workers or OFWs were caught in an Iranian missile strike that hit a residential building in Rehovot, Israel amid escalating regional tensions. In a news release Monday evening, the Department of Migrant Workers or DMW said ongoing coordination is being done with the Philippine Embassy in Tel Aviv to ensure immediate response and assistance for affected OFWs. Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak said the president earlier instructed the DMW to prioritize the safety and welfare of Filipinos abroad, especially in conflict-affected areas. The department, along with the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, is monitoring the condition of a critically injured OFW and remains on high alert for possible rescue or repatriation operations. Meanwhile, 8 of the affected workers have been relocated to a safe shelter, while others continue to receive care from their employers. The DMW also confirmed that one OFW chose to stay with a friend for security. Secretary Kakdak assured that the DMW would continue to strengthen OFW protection and assistance to OFWs affected by any conflict, especially the situation between Israel and Iran. On Monday, 18 OFWs safely returned to the country and arrived at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 1 in Pasay City. The OFWs are bound for Tel Aviv, Israel, and Amman, Jordan, but were stranded in Dubai due to the temporary shutdown of major airports amid the ongoing conflict in the Middle East.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Bea Gaza-de Guzman.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.